Welcome to Wildlife Conversations. I am your host, Jen Ritchie, and I am just back from the Tetons and feel a little bit tired and a little bit restored, but I'm super excited about my guests tonight. I did want to say quickly that I am offering 2 fall photography tours, wildlife photography tours, October 2nd and October 3rd. If you're interested in that, just message me. October 3rd actually is already full. So if you think you might want to do October 2nd, let me know. But anyway, I'm so excited about our guest tonight, and our subject is one that I think most of us want to hear about. Tonight, I welcome Alex Stavrou, the head of Bad Crayfish Productions and the filmmaker behind the new documentary $3.99 Forever about one of the world's most beloved bears. I also welcome a familiar face to the wildlife community, wildlife photographer and YouTuber Evan Watts, who is in the film, along with lots of other familiar faces from our community. And I just want to welcome you both, Alex and Evan. Welcome tonight to Wildlife Conversations.
Thanks for having me, and I appreciate this is outside the realm of what you normally do, so I'm happy to be here.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to everything we'll talk about tonight.
Yeah, sounds good. You mean, Alex, you don't have a bunch of wildlife photography?
I do, but it's not as good as yours.
I'm
Well,
sure.
actually, I have Evan's photo, and I have some people in the movies
Yeah.
photos.
Yes, you do
But
have
not
a
my
lot
own.
of great photographers. We're going to talk about that. So you reached out to me in March, Alex, and you said, "Hey, I've got this documentary. I saw Siler on the podcast and wondered if it'd be a good fit." And I was like, "Let's go. Let's talk about it." So I'm glad we connected. I'm glad you reached out. And tell me a little bit about how filmmaking started for you. How did it start
Uh,
when you were a kid?
yeah. For me, I made basically a lot of terrible short movies and that I'm like on the camcorder where I would edit, like rewinding over and then re-record. And I'm really glad those don't exist anymore because I'm sure they'd be a very hard watch now. But that's how I got started. I was
But
always
that's how
kind
you
of,
get started with creativity.
yeah,
Trying,
exactly.
practicing,
And
making mistakes.
yeah, I can imagine they're great. But they most certainly were not. Um, and then yeah, camera wise, I kind of really didn't pick it back up until I made a bunch of short movies
Hmm.
in college and made like an over dramatic action thing. But
No.
then, yeah. It was actually it was too dramatic. It was too serious, and you got to add some jokes in there. But
Yeah, yeah.
right out of college, I actually started working in local news in upstate New York,
Oh,
and
that's
that's
cool.
yeah. So that was like where I really learned to write, edit, shoot, and do it quickly.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate that now because like you had to be done at 5 no matter what,
yeah,
uh, which was a great experience. And
yeah.
then
That's good practice.
yeah,
And
totally.
with people and story and thinking about story
Yeah,
quickly.
people and story, and then also just so, being open to the unexpected,
Oh, yeah.
you'd have a car accident, you'd have an Elvis festival, you'd have a dog show. It's just, you had to become a master of everything. And I
Yeah,
really like that. I really liked learning a lot and doing new things. And that's where I sort of fell in love with it.
yeah, that's cool. Well, Evan, I know you grew up in Central Kentucky and kind of did some wildlife and nature things near that area. That's a really rich area for wildlife and nature. I grew up in Southern Illinois, so I had Kentucky as my neighbor. Paducah, Kentucky was kind of the place we went over that way. But the Smokies are really close and all that beautiful area. So what started you with a camera and wildlife photography?
What started me with wildlife photography in particular was actually a trip to Yellowstone
Mm-hmm.
in 2020, I guess, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd been into wildlife for years at school for wildlife biology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had this trip to Yellowstone planned with a friend. I kind of came across by chance some social media stuff, some stuff on some wildlife photography content.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I remember there's a YouTube video out there that Doug Gardner and Jared Lloyd made
Oh, yes, I've seen
photographing
that.
Wyoming grizzly. Have you seen that? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
I was like, this is so cool. Like, I would love to do this on my trip. So I bought a Canon 80D with a kit lens
Mm-hmm.
and like I think I had a 55 to 250 millimeter and took that on my trip. I really kind of rare. Now that I've been here in Yellowstone a while, I realized how rare it was. Encounter with a wolf on that trip, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that is rare. Very rare. And didn't you rent a 100 to 400 for that trip?
I did, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was what I got that wolf shot.
That's a
I
good
had read that,
decision.
you know,
Yeah.
250 might not be enough.
Yeah.
It's not. So I rented that 100 to 400, and yeah, kind of history.
Yeah, that is so cool. I remember when you graduated, didn't you? And then you went straight to Yellowstone. I remember that in your YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. So
You're like, I'm already out of here.
yeah, seriously. So I actually spent my last.
We're losing him a little
Oh, I
bit.
think
We're losing you a little bit, Evan. Say that one more time. You're fine. Just the audio. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. So I spent my last like the student exchange program that
We're still losing him, aren't we?
there
Yeah.
for a semester, and I spent 4 nights a week camping in
Oh, wow.
until I
Dedication.
graduated. So
Yeah. Yeah. With your mic, something's going in and out with your mic. So I don't know what, maybe you could test that or we could figure that out. And while he's doing that, I forgot to tell everyone, please say hello in the chat. I see Cynthia's here. Hi, Cynthia. She's writing us from Newark, Delaware. And if you're here, just say hi. We'd love to hear from you. So say hi to Alex and Evan, and we're going to have a question and answer in a little bit. So Alex, I know this film has got to, pull at your heart a lot. You've probably learned a ton. But what drew you originally to these Teton bears and to the GYE, Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem?
I used to be a camp counselor at an Audubon Nature Center, so I would teach kids about wildlife and nature, but they were second and third graders, so we never saw anything. And I kept in touch with a lot of those people from there, and I had a few friends who ended up becoming wildlife guides.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Tetons, I think I went out in 2017, which was your year as well, when you.
That's right. Oh my gosh, you've heard that before on the podcast. 2017 was this magical year.
I think you're right. I think something was going on that year.
I keep hearing that year over and over.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I mean, like Evan was saying, I just had one of those magical days, which I didn't appreciate how great it was until later, where went out early and just saw elk bugling like right next to me with their breath shooting out.
Ugh.
Had bison stampeding right across, and then within like 3 hours, and then had this encounter with Blondie and her 2 cubs and the now famous 1063.
Yes,
and
yes.
That's where I saw all the people, and to me at the time it seemed like a lot of people, but now it's probably pretty tame.
It's so true. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think like you, I just had the bug and I could stay out there all day. And my friends were like, we gotta go. And I was like,
Are you sure?
Got lucky again, saw them again. And that's what got me. Blondie was my first Teton bear, and then I learned about 399 later.
Yes, that's the same with me. I mean, she just captured my heart. And then I was on Googling as fast as I could when we got in the car, who are these bears? And then all these stories come up and you're like, how did I not know about this?
Right.
My family's park was Rocky Mountain National Park, which of course only has, some black bears. So I just happened to decide to go. We decided to double up that year and do Tetons and Rocky Mountain, and there was Blondie. And
oh wow, that's cool.
It's like
I went end of October. I don't know, maybe we were there at the same time.
I was there in the spring, so the cubs were just tiny. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Evan, so let's talk a little bit what drew you to Grand Teton and Yellowstone. I mean, you just talked about your Yellowstone experience, but what drew you to the Teton bears? I think you're muted for a second. Let's unmute. You can unmute. We're going to get it together. It's fine. It's fine.
Is this mic working better now?
It is working. You're fine. Okay. This is totally casual. I always tell everybody, this is not fancy. I'm just inviting you to my back deck, and we're just going to hang out and talk about, geek out about wildlife photography. So it's fine.
Cool. Yeah, I've been having problems with these AirPods, so I think they're about to go, but hopefully this works better. So
yeah, it's working. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So what really drew me to it was originally, from the biology standpoint, it's the largest intact ecosystem in North America.
Yes.
It's the place to see large American megafauna. And that always really intrigued me about the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem.
Mhm.
And then once I got into photography, obviously this is kind of a hot spot for that in North America as well. So the two kind of went together really well. On my first trip out here, we tried really hard to see 399 under four cubs, and we're not lucky. Unfortunately, we I don't know, spent 5 days looking for them, and it was just like a stint where she was not in view. And so I got a job out here for the next summer, 2021, I guess,
Mhm.
working in the park. And one of my big goals was like, I want to photograph 399 in these four
Yeah.
cubs.
Yeah.
And what drew me to her was at first the fact that like this is a grizzly with four cubs and how cool would that be to see? And then the more that I found out about her story, the more interested I got and the more I wanted to spend time with her.
Yes.
Um,
That
so
is
yeah,
so true. Well, I have a picture of 399 I want to share that's yours, and you can see why she captured everybody's heart. And this is a great photo you got. I think you said the day Spirit came out with her. Is that right, Evan?
yeah, this was the day they emerged from
Okay. Yes.
hibernation.
Yes. And you raised a lot of money with this photo. I remember that.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
really
when
good.
she passed, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was great. But that's a beautiful photo. And what an exciting day that was. What an exciting day.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, she's going to be the topic of our conversation tonight. And I know people in the chat are saying, yay, we want to hear about 399. So, um, what drew you to making a film, Alex? Like, how did you start? What's the process? How did you start talking to people? And how'd you lay that out? I know the theme is very unique in
Yeah.
terms of documentaries about her. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
So yeah, I first learned about 399. I was staying with a few guides in Hoback, which
Mhm.
is 30 miles south of Grand Teton,
Mhm.
and we were getting up early to look for critters, and we were at the gas station there, and I was getting snacks, and I just overheard somebody saying like, "We just saw 399," and I told my friends, and they were like, "She's not here," and I was like, "No, like someone just said it," and like they were just placating me. They were like, "Okay, well look."
Mhm. Mhm.
And we went back to their house like just to be extra sure, like just to like make sure the trash is in and all that.
Oh
And
yeah.
I saw her and the four cubs like corner my eye around the house, and I was like, this is great, like we get to drive to Grand Teton. But their mouths were dropped and they were like, what is she doing here? And
Yeah.
one of them was popping off, who was a guy who was just like, she's been given too many chances. She should have been dead. Like, what's going? And I was like, what? I was so confused. Like, what is going on here? Like, A, isn't this a great thing that the Bears are, we
Yeah.
didn't have to go too far before I knew everything. And then B, this complicated relationship that they had with this individual bear. And at the time, I had no idea bears were celebrities. Uh, and so I was just totally hooked. And so I was really interested at first at the guide's perspective and what that was like. And I kind of knew about their problems and what they go through. And I know Evan is a guide as well. And it's an interesting relationship they have with the bears. And then I did more research, and I really at that time they're also afraid of what social media would do. They're at that time, I think 2017, there was social media, but it wasn't like in the park in the same way.
Right. Right.
And so that was like they had a big fear, like what does that mean? And so as I looked more into it, I learned about the photographers now, what a modern photographer does, how they use Instagram, and how in Evan's case he uses YouTube to get his photography out there. And so I was just really interested in this complicated relationship they had, and so the film kind of ended up. So I just started reaching out basically, and I met this amazing community of people who were willing to talk, and I talked with a lot of amazing photographers and guides, and kind of ended up exploring their relationship with 399, the role social media has on wildlife,
Mhm.
and all the complications with delisting and conservation that go along with that, and what ended up being the final year of 399's life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's true. And I
yeah.
can see your news days that you were talking about. Your mind was like, that's the question I have. Why is this so complicated? What is the effect on these photographers? What is going on in this ecosystem? I think when you first visited the Tetons, it's just so different for me than any other national park in terms of celebrity. in terms of the amount of photographers and the amount of social media. I was not ready when I first saw Blondie to see the amount of money and lenses that was all around me in the Bear Jam. And I've never encountered that again in another national park. And I have visited lots of other national parks. So it is a question, like, why is it like this? What is, and then 2020 just exploded with those quads. So I think it's just kind of a melting pot of all these things that happen. But so
Yeah.
Evan, how did you get involved? When did Alex reach out to you?
He reached out to me, I think in April, late April or May of 2024, and pretty much explained the premise of the film, kind of what he was going for to tell the story of 399.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that, he had this idea to take a look at kind of a different side of the story. So he was focusing more on like social media aspect and how that's impacted her and the park and everyone down to the guides in the area. Like he
Yeah.
said, social media has had such a huge impact with her, and that's something that, as great as the PBS documentary was, it didn't have a lot of time to touch on.
Yeah.
And I really like that Alex was going into that. And so he reached out, asked if I wanted to do an interview. And I think the start of June 2024, I came down to the Tetons and we spent a day together and
Yeah.
shot for the film. So
Yeah. And is some of your YouTube footage shown in the film as well?
it is. Yeah. Yeah. So he's
Yeah.
used some footage I have of 399, 1063, 610, a couple of the different bears. So
Yeah, that's what I thought. I really love the that theme, that angle of it, Alex, because
Yeah, and with Evan in particular, it's cool to kind of intercut his YouTube with
yes,
the interviews we did and tell his story with the story of 399 at the same time.
yeah, I love that because it really is a personal story for many of us who photograph the bears, and I can't be there all the time, but the people that are there all the time, and especially the guides that are facing the question every day, are we going to see 399? Are we going to see 399? And you had Bo Weldon on it as well. And I remember in one of the clips, he says like that was the question, and it was like either a yay or a nay on the workshop. If they didn't see her, it was a horrible workshop,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
horrible
Oh,
tour, you know. And if they did see
yeah,
her, it was great. So that just shows you the pressure of
totally.
the photography there, and if you get the bear or not, or if you see the bear or not, if you see her or not.
Yeah.
And what did you learn in terms of how that's affecting photographers in terms of their social media and even their own personal personalities and lives? Because I think you have some really good examples of that in the film.
Yeah, I think at some level, all of the photographers have to become an ambassador for wildlife, whether they want to or not. And that's an important responsibility. If you follow them, it can seem like, oh, like why are they telling people every 5 seconds to keep 100 feet away or that kind of thing? But it's important. It's important to remind people the stakes for these animals and what particularly with grizzly bears, it's always on the line. So it's important to tell these stories to get these out there. And I do think it's interesting. Evan's kind of an interesting photographer guide hybrid. But you do think about some of these other photographers who's like, yeah, they chose to be alone in the woods and be with animals and be with nature. And they're now in a situation where you're with hundreds of people at times. It's
Yeah.
not maybe what you signed up for initially. And I think at some level, everybody's the same person where they're like, it's good that there's more people, but I prefer it the way it was back in the day, or that personal experience might be better. There's
I
pros and
wondered if
cons.
that's what you heard, if it was like the majority of photographers saying that.
I would say pretty much all. I think it makes sense. It's like they avoid the parks in July and August when it's the
Yes.
busiest. Just because if anybody doesn't know, it's probably like if you live in New York and you're like, I'm not going to Times Square.
Right. Yes.
But
It's
it's
way
interesting because it's like it's interesting because photography, I'm sure you've talked about this a bunch, but just how like you're trying to get this very natural wild thing, but the reality is it's not such a wild place as
yes.
maybe it might seem.
I try to explain that to people here from where I'm from in the Midwest, like, know that I am not alone with her. Like if they see one of my bear photos, I'm like, there were probably 100 people around me and people out of their roofs and people out, out on the road, and then wildlife management was there. And it's really hard to explain. So I started taking pictures, behind me and around me to show people, like, it's pretty crazy. But
Yeah,
I
I
do
did that
like
too, and people were like, genius. I'm like,
no, I do like what Savannah is in it. And
Mhm.
I really could resonate with what she was saying. Like when you're an introvert and you're drawn to nature, that's not necessarily a thing you're thinking about. I don't know if that affects you, Evan, but like I think you probably are a nature guy. And then now to think I've got to be out with all these people and like think how I'm parking my car. And so how does that affect you and how you do your wildlife photography?
It's very true. I would obviously prefer a scene where it's like me and 10 other cars maybe at a bear jam. And it does have an impact because you're fighting for a spot and there's,
Ugh,
everyone kind of gets to know each other. And so there's a lot of socialization involved, honestly, in going to a bear jam and being at these scenes, and drama arises from that between people. It can
that's
get
very true.
chaotic. Um,
It's very true.
uh, I love a bear jam in that, I'm getting to photograph a bear, but I definitely would prefer a calmer scene, although I know that's not necessarily possible
I know.
in this ecosystem anymore.
Yeah, especially when one starts, and then if people are going back and forth from Yellowstone, the Tetons, and they're coming back in, and like then tourists will start, and the cell phones come out, and it gets pretty chaotic. And I was just talking. My daughter went with me this time, and I was telling her like you're going to see a lot of socializing, a lot of talking, and a lot of like I hope it's getting better, but sometimes egos and like who's
Mm,
trying to get the shot. And it's just a really interesting, like almost sometimes political system. You're like, like who knows who and who's getting the texts and who's getting the information and who knows where to be. And I've just not experienced that in other parks. So I think that's just
Oh,
almost, I
interesting.
think you're touching on that. And like
Yeah.
there is a whole community of intertwined things. And even when I step in it a few times a year, I can immediately feel it. And then
Really?
I know like people are trying to be there first, or people are trying to get that first photo out, or people, and it's hard to get a unique photo when you're in a bear jam. So you want,
Yeah, that's an interesting thing I thought about was there's at first, I don't know how you feel about this, Evan, but like there are these moments that they're famous 399 moments where people have a shot, and then but then there's someone 5 feet to the right who has a similar shot.
mhm,
Uh, and at first I was like, what's the difference? But then I think it's a cool way to bring community together.
yeah.
That's the positive. It's like, oh, we were both there at that classic
Yes.
event.
Yes.
Um,
It is really nice to share things. And I was telling Alex before I got on, like I had several moments with 1063 last week, and the majority were quiet and peaceful. I think everyone realized what she had gone through. If you don't know, 1063 lost 2 out of 3 of her cubs this month. And then on I think the 15th, I think that was the 15th, she came out with a surviving cub. And so the mood in the park changed immediately. So it was very, very somber. And even it was rainy. And then the next day when she came out, like the text started on my phone and I headed north pretty quickly. And it was emotional. I think we were all very emotional to see her come out with that cub. And it just shows you how much these bears really mean to people. They really do. They have touched not only the photographers, but like you're exploring, Alex, like the world. So
yeah.
how has the world been affected by 399
In terms of her death or just in general?
in
Just
general? Yeah, in
oh,
general.
yeah, I think at the very least, she's for someone who knows nothing about the parks and nothing
Yeah,
about bears, she's
yeah.
kind of like maybe turned someone 5 degrees, where it's like, oh, I didn't know bears could do that. I didn't know bears ate
Mhm.
grass. I didn't know, I'd never seen them in a non like Hollywood setting where they're ripping someone's face apart.
It's so
Um,
true. Yeah.
so that's something huge. And her story's only grown, which is interesting. I had friends and family who I was telling this story about nonstop for a year and a half, and they were like, "Okay." And then when she died, they're like, "Oh, that bear." I was like, "Yeah." So
Right. Yes.
there's that, and then I think one of the things I definitely learned, and you guys are very familiar with, is there's even people who live with them who have no idea what's going on. So
Yeah.
getting her story out there, getting the story about grizzlies out there in general, is important just to have awareness at the
Yeah.
very least.
Yeah. Evan, what do you think that she's done in terms of how we handle coexistence, how we handle bears differently in the Yellowstone area? Do you think that she's changed things in the last 30 years or 28 years?
I think she has, and I think she's impacted, to me, more people outside of the Yellowstone area than in the Yellowstone area. Like the people that were here, a lot of them at least, already had an opinion on grizzly bears, right?
That's
Whether
true.
they like
Yeah.
them or dislike them or whatever it might be. With or without 399, people had an opinion on grizzly bears.
Yeah.
Outside of Yellowstone, there were a lot of people that didn't know that much about grizzly bears. And 399 was brought into their world via social media.
Mm,
To me, the biggest impact she's had is that she's made more people care about grizzly bears that otherwise never would have.
yeah.
There was a lot of negative to come out of her fame, both in the pressure that it put on her and obviously eventually her death. Um, but I think a lot of positive came out of it as well because she brought grizzly bears into so many people's worlds. And the more people care about grizzly bears, the more likely they are to be protected by
Yeah.
our lawmakers, and that's always a net positive. Um,
Yeah. I think so too. Alex, you alluded to that earlier, that it's more important now more than ever. So what do you mean by that? What are you alluding to?
So yeah, I know, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with the grizzly bears are currently protected under the Endangered Species Act, but
Mhm.
and they're beyond what the initial goal was. The numbers of grizzlies have grown beyond that, but since then there's agreement that politics has gotten in the way over biology, and
Mm,
there's a huge fear of the way grizzly bears will be managed because of the way wolves were managed or are managed
yes.
currently.
Hmm.
So that's honestly a big reason why a lot of people are want to talk about 399 in the first place, because they want to talk about protecting the grizzly bears in general. And that's what 399 has done. She's kind of been a symbol for all grizzly bears. And she has motivated several movements. She was, when they were taken off the endangered species list in 2018, she was definitely part of the movement to keep them listed. And then she was also part of the movement uh, to get bear-proof trash cans in Jackson County.
Yeah. Yeah.
It always been an issue. Actually, in 2017, when I was there, I saved a newspaper um, for whatever reason, and on the front page it said grizzly bear, put down because of trash. And even then, I was very surprised, and I learned a lot about it.
Yes.
And there were a lot of people on the ground who made that happen, including Kristen Combs with JH Bear Solutions.
Hmm.
But something that helped push it over the edge was Savannah's petition through change.org. And I'm blanking on the number, but I think it was like 90,000 signatures.
Oh,
And
good, good. It
to
was
Evan's
shocking to me
point,
too, as an outsider, that
yeah.
wait,
So,
what?
yeah,
You don't have
totally.
an ordinance? There's not an
Yeah.
ordinance?
Um,
It
and
was
yeah, to Evan's point, like that was people outside of Yellowstone who signed that petition, and that's how you got such crazy numbers to
Yeah.
follow that.
I
So
think people were really worried about the quads at that time and her going into town and all of that stuff. And so we were watching as she was traveling with those quads. And when those four had captured everybody's hearts, I think everybody wanted to fight for them and protect them. And so,
yeah, because they were getting into trash. So it was, and that's how most or a lot of grizzly bears are euthanized, because they
yes.
become
Yeah. Well,
habituated.
it does seem like if you live in that kind of area, you should know that's your responsibility and just like accept that if you live in a bear territory. I would think if I lived there, I would gladly have a bear proof, bear resistant trash can. But I don't know. I hopefully people, I know there's always a battle. There's always politics
Yeah.
involved
Well,
and
I know
everything.
Evan got fired up about that when we when we talked about that.
What do you think, Evan? What do you think?
You know, I agree with you. If you live here, it should be a part of your day-to-day life.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
live in Minnesota, you're used to shoveling your sidewalk when it snows. So if you live
yeah,
in bear country, you should be used to bear-proofing your trash can. That's how I feel about it.
yeah,
There shouldn't need to be an ordinance, but if there needs to be, then there needs to be.
yeah.
It's something we could use here in Gardner as well. Um, we're pretty good about trash here in town, but there definitely are some places that it leaks through. And there was a bear euthanized last year for that very reason here in Gardner. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Well, I noticed it had to be in a certain bear corridor area in the Teton County. And I remember being in town at a hotel, and it's not just bears, watching a fox, and he was in horrible condition. He looked horrible, but getting in the trash. And I just still felt like this was just this past December. And I'm like, we're still letting animals get in the trash. Like it was just like it shouldn't just be bears. It was this poor, I mean, the fox looked horrible. And I just like, why do we not have bear-proof trash cans at the hotel? Just open, they were open trash cans, just open outside. And I think you're right, Evan. Like as an outsider, I feel like, well, if I lived there, I would just have a bear-proof trash can. I don't understand. It's just so easy. Julia Cook and I talked about this too. Like there are so many inexpensive ways to protect these bears, like by not putting birdseed out and not putting your trash out. It doesn't cost you anything. So I don't, sometimes you just wonder why there's such a resistance. But I think out west, what I noticed as a Midwesterner is that there just always is. There's always a pro and con. And so you have to live with it and fight for what you believe in. And so I don't know. I don't know if you see that
Yeah,
too.
that was definitely
yeah,
something. At least in the guides, it was interesting how a lot of them kind of have this kind of libertarian view, like don't tell me what to do, but also do not speed. Don't speed.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so it's like that was their passion, but also like let me do what I want to do. So
yes.
yeah,
That
I
is
understand that.
that is the
We got to look
problem. That is the
there.
problem. Yes, and I get that. And we're going to talk about some of those things in a little bit. But I know you cover 610 a little bit in the documentary and her
Yeah.
accident. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that, Alex? And
Yeah, so
what happened?
when I started, that was kind of the big story that had happened. And that section of the doc, we kind of tell through the eyes of Bo Weldon, another guide, and how basically through social media and through the news or whatever, 610 was hit by a car, and she was laying on the side of the road. And at the time, she had three cubs. And the fear was that she was going to die and that those cubs would be on their own. But then the tricky thing was the world that we live in. It's like, oh, there's a bear 20 yards at the road. Everybody knows it's there. And so if you're a guide, that'd be a really great way to get a good tip. Or if you're a photographer, you get a great photo.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I never thought of that. Yeah, okay.
yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so Bo started this petition online called Be a Friend of 610. And the idea was just to tell all guides and photographers, like, hey, let's give her space, let's let her heal.
Hmm.
He said, imagine you were hit by a car and then you just sleep outside. That's the
Right,
situation. So
right.
that's definitely a big positive of the social media, is, if it wasn't there, then people would have no idea what that bear's deal was, and they might just think it's a sleeping bear.
Yeah,
Uh, but him and a lot of other guides and people were able to get the word out, and it was a great story of just how people were able to come together to try to help this bear. And it also brought awareness to one of the issues with bears is they do get hit by cars. So if
yeah.
you can drive the speed limit and all that. And then of course that one has a nice ending because she did. Uh,
Yes, that was like a miracle.
yeah,
She did get up and she is
yeah,
okay and she's fine right now. She doesn't have any cubs right now, but she's fine. She's strong. And
yeah,
I heard I didn't get to see her this last time, but I heard she's big and fluffy and pretty and doing well. So
yeah.
she's
She's
having
doing
her
great.
single year.
Right, right. Yeah, hopefully the drama isn't high this year.
Yeah, and if people don't know, 610 is actually 399's oldest, I think oldest living daughter, right? I think so. I think she's about 16, 18. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Sure, people in
she's
the
I think she's
comments know better than I
19.
do, but yeah.
Yeah, that's always interesting telling the stories. People are like, wait, there's another famous bear. Like,
I
what?
know people here do not understand. And I was trying to explain to someone like
Yeah.
the spring was very different because her name is always in the air.
Yeah.
Always in the air. Even if you're down looking at beaver, like you can hear people in the background. Have you seen 399 today? Have you seen, where is she? And you just always hear her name. And so, Evan, how do you think the community came together after her death? And what do we have hope still? What's the hope coming up?
For me, I really think the community came together in a great way after her death.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you mentioned earlier I had kind of done a fundraiser with my photo of her in spirit,
Mm-hmm.
raised some money that was donated to Vital Ground, which protects grizzly bear habitat. Um, it's a nonprofit that protects grizzly bear habitat. There were a couple other photographers. Seiler, I know, did something. Trent Sizemore did something.
Mm-hmm.
All as fundraisers to eventually donate to some cause that protected bears. I loved that. Thought that was a great way to like really honor her legacy and to make sure that she made a difference after kind of all that she's given us.
Yes.
Um, and then obviously, the memorial that was in Jackson, that's on the screen now. The vigil that was held in Jackson, there was definitely a rally of like everyone wanted to pay their respects to her. Whether you were someone who had photographed her time and time again, or someone who had never even seen 399, people wanted to pay their respects and honor her in some way.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I watched Here from Home and I thought it was really good. It was neat to see the community come together and unity. That was good. And what do you think, Alex, that she will do for the Teton Bears in the future? Do you think there?
Yeah, I think to Evan's point, I think she even her photos now can keep movements going forward to help protect them. That means a lot because at the end of the day, it is money on the ground that makes the difference. It is knowledge, but people, you need to pay for the trash cans, you need to pay for vital ground. That doesn't happen without money.
Yeah.
So that's a big positive. And yeah, I think there's debate over whether there will be another bear like her again, but I think what she did, whether it was 4 years, 20 years, or a day, the impact she had and the amount of joy she brought to so many people was something I did not expect, and it
No.
was very real. And I at the vigil, one of the more interesting things was seeing people who were much more scientific minded, I would say, which is she's a grizzly bear, she's going to eat, she's going to do this,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of take a step back and say, okay, like this bear brought so much joy, and it's okay to be this sad about it
Yeah.
because that's it's a completely natural thing.
Yeah. I
Because
think she drew us in and showed us the emotions of a bear. And I think we could all admit, like, oh wait, grizzly. I think it showed the world grizzly bears have emotions. They have like I've heard, Tom Mangelson describe her as counting the cubs as they would get in there, like fall in the river, and she'd know she'd have four, or when she was reunited with them, how they'd all be bawling, and like one, it's just the joy she saw and the grief that she saw when her cub Snowy was killed. So I think that draws people in too, to see like these are real animals with lots of different layers, and not just a trophy, which I think, Evan, you talked about before she died, that she could
For
have been
sure.
the trophy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that through the grapevine that there were certain people who wanted her to be their trophy if
Yeah.
there ever was a hunt.
Yeah.
And she was so much more than that to so many people.
Yeah.
And to kind of touch on the biology side of things that we talked about, where,
Yes.
biology maybe isn't sometimes speaking to our lawmakers these days like it used to.
Yeah.
Maybe lots of people who really care about these bears and the money they're bringing into this ecosystem will, right?
Right.
Bo said that he had clients who it was the make or break of the tour, whether they saw
Yes.
399.
Yes.
Those people paid who knows how many hundreds, thousands of dollars for hotels, food, tours, etc. in Jackson, she brought money in, and
She
all
absolutely
grizzly
did.
bears do,
That's
right?
right.
And so maybe if biology isn't speaking to our lawmakers, the money that these animals are bringing into local communities can.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something a few people talked about in the doc as well, is just the economics of it all. Sometimes that's what it comes down to. And the couple $100 for a hunting license is not the same as the millions. The Grizzly like
The
$399
tourism. Yeah,
to the
For sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, just seeing 1063 in this last week, and I can hear her name in the air now, and I can hear 610's name in the air now. And like, there will never be another 399. Every bear is unique. Their stories are unique, but people still want to see these bears. It's so unique to see these sows, raising their cubs near the road. I don't know where else you find that. I think in Yellowstone, we can see some of that, but I think because the Tetons is so small, and like, people know the certain areas, that it does seem like tourism dollars are still going to come in. And I think we're going to have to ramp up even more how we protect these bears. Just from what I saw with 1063, I was telling you, like, people were approaching her with cell phones before wildlife management could get there last week. And the worst thing that I saw. So we have to be careful with how do you think photographers approach this now, Evan? Do you think what are the ethical practices that you talk about when you lead your tours, and that you'd like to see other photographers using?
So the main thing that I talk about is, 100 yards is our ground rule, but what the management on duty says trumps that, because the situation matters. There are some bears that bear managers might not want us 200 yards from
Right.
outside of the vehicle, and that's we're going to listen to them, right? Even if the
Right.
rule is 100. There are other bears that at 80, a manager might say, yeah, you can stand right outside of your door, right?
Yeah.
So it's ethically, I think the most important thing we can do is listen to what the people on scene tell us to do.
Yeah.
They're trained to read these bears. They're trained to know the individual bears and how they might behave. And each situation is entirely different based on location and how many people are at the bear jam and which bear it is. And so the best thing we can do is listen to what they say, and follow direction, and hope for the best for the bears.
Yeah, I agree. I did feel bad because I got out of the car when she was somewhat close, and then realized we're in a bad situation. We were telling people to get back, saw someone physically moving people before wildlife management could get there, and then got back in the car and immediately tried to contact people who knew dispatch. So it's that kind of thing when the tourists don't know. And so it's education. It's continually educating through social media and through, in person. Like, it can get chaotic really fast. So what did you learn about, Alex? What did you learn about, like, speed limits and other preventative measures when it comes to coexisting with bears?
Well, yeah, I learned, you definitely want to go slow in the park if you haven't been there before. There's a reason those speed limits are lower at night. And we did one interview that went a little late, and we came back to the park, and we had 3 elk pop up, and so
Yeah.
very real thing.
It's very real.
There is the other side of it. It is tricky because it is a road that people have to drive through, and there's a world where you're driving through, and I did meet people who had no idea that there were bears there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Education. It's making sure. I don't have the answer for that necessarily, but the speeding is a tricky one, especially in the national parks, just because it can have such a ripple effect for that one time where you're going a little too fast. But I don't have the answer.
I know. I did, when I was doing research for this, I did hear some bear management scientist guys saying that even when you have the lower speed limit for night, people do not follow it. And I did notice that. I do notice that when I'm in the park, if I'm going the 10 more below that regular speed limit, people pass me all the time. And I'm thinking, I do not want to be responsible for a moose, an elk, a bear. I just would not want to be responsible for that, because sometimes you can't help it. Like with 399, we know that was an accident. But
Yeah, it's tricky because yeah, I was definitely going very slow. But on
yes,
the other hand, you know, I could understand if you live there and you drive these dark mountain roads every day. It's
the
different.
patience. Yep. It's like what
So
you were saying, Evan. If you live there, there's certain responsibilities you have to take, even if you have
For
to drive a
sure.
little slower at night. Yep. Well, if you have
Yeah,
questions for Alex and Evan, please put them in the Q&A. I know we have one right now, and we've had some comments over on the side, people saying that they love your photo of 399, Evan, and they have it hanging in their house. So it's very cool. Um, so I have a question for you guys. Let me see. Let's open it. Okay, Evan, compare the bear and wildlife jams in Yellowstone to the Smoky Mountains. This is from Leanne Green. She lives closer to the Smoky Mountains, so she's kind of wondering probably your experience with that.
cool. That's a great question. First, thank you for whoever has my 399 photo hanging. I
Yes,
appreciate that.
it's
Um,
Elizabeth. Elizabeth does.
cool. Thank you, Elizabeth. So the bear jams are very different in my experience. Smoky Mountain bear jams, typically, for me at least, have always been in the Cades Cove area, which
Hmm.
is a one-way loop. Um, and typically, Smoky Mountain bear jams are just like a dead stop of traffic. Um, there often aren't management on scene, and there are sometimes, I guess, like half the time that I'm there. Um, Often aren't management on scene though, and people are pretty close to the bears. Um, the rule in the Smokies is 50 yards, so it's a little closer than Yellowstone and Grand Teton, but they're also black bears as opposed to grizzly bears, which are a little more dangerous. Um, I would say there's less chaos at a Smoky Mountain Bear Jam, but there are there's more management on scene at a Yellowstone Bear Jam, which sounds counterintuitive. I don't know how that works. I think it's because there are so many photographers in Yellowstone and the Tetons as opposed to the Smokies.
Yeah.
But I feel like a Yellowstone Teton Bear Jam is like lawlessness, I think was the word that Bo used in the
I was gonna
documentary.
say
Yeah,
that. Yes, that
it's
word
just
really struck
chaos.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just total chaos. Even when there is, Park Service management on scene, it's total chaos. And yeah, that word struck me as well. That's such a good description. There's just like a free for all, whether you're a photographer or not, there are people everywhere getting too close, yelling at other people,
Yeah.
jumping in front of people's shots. It's very, very chaotic in Yellowstone and the Tetons. And I feel like the Smoky Mountain jams, although less managed by Park Service, are generally more chill in my experience.
Can you get out of your car in Cades Cove?
You can, yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember that. And then and it's a time they shut the gates too on that. You can't always be in there.
Yeah,
So
it's sunrise to sunset.
yeah,
So a
yeah.
little more restrictive in that
I'm
way.
wondering how different the egos are.
I think they're a lot bigger in Yellowstone and Grand Teton than the
That's kind
Smoky
of
Mountains.
that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's kind of what I'm thinking
Yeah,
too. Sorry, everyone. I'm not saying everyone has egos, but I mean it does. Like the lenses are huge. It's
yeah,
very different than Cades Cove to me.
totally,
Very different from my
totally.
experience in Cades Cove. Yeah.
I
Uh,
know a handful of photographers that are in Cades Cove pretty regularly, but it's a
mhm,
small handful
mhm.
as opposed to Yellowstone and the Teton. I mean, it's countless.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think we have one more question here. And I think someone texted me a question too, so I'll read that too. Okay, Karthik asks, when or where, how can we watch the documentary? We're going to get to that too, but you can answer that now, Alex. When and where and how?
So we're looking at a screening in Jackson, which I think will potentially be end of August or September. And we're in the fundraising phase of things. And so that will dictate, hopefully we can do other screenings and festivals and other places. And then eventually it'll be streaming somewhere. But that's all up in the air right now. We're still kind of in the fundraising thing. Um, and so yeah, I'll update that info when we have it.
Yeah. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that, like where to find you and how people can help. We have another question for you guys. This is from Stacy. She says, "What are some of the challenges with producing the documentary?" That's a good question, Alex. What are some
Oh,
challenges you
well,
face?
I'll say right now, the thing about documentary is the story's never over.
Oh,
So
that's
uh,
true.
even when you think it's over, it's not over. So, my initial, another reason behind doing this is I just wanted to do a passion project, and I just wanted to get out there and do it. And
Yeah.
probably no way I could do a scripted movie in the Tetons. That would take years and years and years. It'd be incredibly expensive. But with documentary, I could just get out and do it, and it was my passion. It was something I would be doing anyway. So,
Yeah.
but and so, I was almost done, and then she passed away, and so that kind of flipped things on its head a little bit, or a lot, and then.
Yes.
Yeah, the situation is ever evolving. I think we're done now, but I could see in a world where if I was still going, maybe this 1063 story would be woven in there.
I was just going to say to you, when you posted last week the 1063 clip, I'm like, oh no, he's going to have to add
Yeah,
more.
well, someone actually, Jacob Crankett suggested, like, this could be a thing to keep people updated on what's going on, and
Yeah.
that was such a bittersweet but incredible story
Yeah.
there.
She's such a
But
docile bear. She's so sweet. So I think people are already in love with her. So we'll see. I don't
yeah,
think she has that same charisma as 399 and like, I don't know, chutzpah or whatever. But she is such a beautiful bear. It's going to be really interesting. I know we're all wishing her a very safe season with that surviving cub. So Fiona Stavrou
oh, I know her.
says, what is your favorite thing about filming bears as opposed to other animals? Alex, we'll start with you.
Oh, there, I think with the bears, there's just something, I think with grizzly bears in particular, because they, at least for me, I can only see them in the national parks. There is something, very powerful and, I would say magical, almost, like that feeling of when you see it, and it feels surreal. And I will say there's certainly negative to the bear jams, but definitely one of the big positives I thought was, when we filmed, there was a 399 played with her cub for a bit, and like kind of when the sun was going down, and
Oh,
there was just a big, there were a lot of people there, but it was definitely a feeling of collective joy. I was just so happy, and you could feel it. So I
yeah.
think it was something incredible that you get with bears that you might not get with other animals.
I think that's right. There's a magic. When I was waiting for her to cross with the quads in 2020, June of 2020, it was over 100 people probably waiting for her to cross, and the rangers were there, and it was silent, and we were all waiting, and then you could just feel like electricity in the air. And then she crossed with all of them at sunset, and all you heard was shutters, shutters going off, and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it was that same thing as one of those nights where it was sort of magical and quiet, and people were obeying and listening and just waiting, and yeah, it was just magical. I was still shaking when I got home. It was so magical.
And I was listening to your other podcast about I think it was Kelly talking about just how she had a moment where 399 looked at her, and you could
Yeah.
just hear how powerful it was, and a lot of
Yeah.
people have these moments, which are
Yeah. I
incredible.
had moments where I would go ahead of the crowd and wait. And then a Mangleson happened to be next to me. And so I got to see 399 like look right at him. And I'm thinking, yeah, she knows. She knows who that is. Like she came to him and was calm and looked at him. And it was like, yeah, these bears are so much more than what we realize. Evan, what do you think? What do you love about photographing bears? You have so many opportunities in Yellowstone right now. That place has been hopping this spring.
Oh, it's been like one of the
Crazy.
best bear springs ever here. It's been
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
I love that bears are so charismatic and expressive. Like they just lend themselves to great photos to begin with because of that. Um, and I love that they have such varied personalities. Every bear has a big personality, and it's always something entirely different depending on the bear.
Yes.
And sometimes you see these kind of passed down personality traits or learned traits from a mother to a cub, right? And that's really cool to watch. Um, and they're also one of the few species that I feel like we can really watch over a long term a mother raise and teach to be an adult.
Yeah.
Something like, I don't know, foxes or bison or whatever else,
Yeah.
it's not that easy to observe, I guess, the
Very
kind of
true.
interactions that they have. Where with bears, like I can remember a specific moment with Blondie in 2023, fall 2023, where like her cubs were wrestling. She was digging for something. She lifts her head and like calls to them. They both dart over and just like freeze in place and watch her do it. Watch her dig for whatever she's digging for. she steps back and they both start digging right there too.
Oh, that's
So it was like her
awesome.
actually teaching them to find this food source. And it's like
Yes,
those
yes.
moments are so cool to watch. Yeah.
That is so cool. That was I missed her. I was circling back there. I knew she was coming out and I had to get on a plane and missed her by 2 hours. I circled and circled for 2 days until I had to get on that plane and then landed in Dallas for my connection and was getting texts. And I'm like, don't even talk to me about
Yeah.
it. I can't handle it. I cannot handle it. And by the time I got to Indy to get in my car, the tears started. I'm like, I can't believe I just missed that. You know,
Yeah.
it's not easy. You're working really hard to find these things, and they do mean a lot to us. So it's like, you know, there are, I think what this podcast explores a lot is creativity and the emotion that goes into photography. And these bears pull that out for sure. I think
Definitely.
you've had Jam just like putting on a show up there this spring. Is
Yeah.
that
Jam and Snow as well.
yeah. What
Yeah.
personalities? I mean, it's crazy. I was up for one afternoon this last week, and they are just like, it's so fun to watch. And that's a whole other culture in itself.
Yeah, for sure.
Here's Danny says Yellowstone seems overwhelming and very people-ish, she says, to go for the first time. Is it really that overwhelming, or just drive until you see something and it's still enjoyable? Evan, what do you think?
I think it can be overwhelming. It's a massive park.
Yeah,
There's a lot to see here. But I also think you can totally just drive until you see something and it's still enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know, where the crowds of people are lined up on the road with scopes and cameras, you can probably expect that there's something to see there. So, you know, get out and yes, it's going to be a massive crowd, but at the end of the day, every single one of those people is most focused on getting their photo of that bear. So get out with your camera and find yourself spot in the jam and just enjoy the moment as well. Yes, it's a lot to deal with, but if you just focus on what the bear is doing, it's still, I find it peaceful still at times.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
felt like it was too, and people were respectful. Do you want to tell Danny any months to avoid in Yellowstone?
July and August, I would say avoid. For bears in particular, May and the first part of June is really like the best time to see them. And then activity gets good in late September, October as well, in both Yellowstone and the Tetons.
Yeah.
And then winter is awesome as well if you're not looking for bears, like not very crowded, lots of great photography opportunities. And the park is a little less overwhelming in winter to me, just because there's less that you can do, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That northern road and then a snow coach from West Yellowstone, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I did that for the first time this past winter, and it was very peaceful. It was really beautiful. And I love winter photography. So that was right down my alley. Okay. Supa asks, what's the takeaway you are hoping audiences will have when they see the movie? Alex, what do you think? What's the takeaway you want people to have?
Well, I hope that it turns people at least a little bit. You can only hope for so much, but a degree to show that these wild bears matter. These wild places matter. I mean, they're kind of more under threat than ever, and also to highlight the people in the film and to show this is something you can do. I mean, one of the things, you know, there's a couple wildlife documentaries that highlight not so great people. So I think that's something I thought about. It's highlighting really great people. I mean, Evan, you know, he probably could have made a lot of money with that 399 photo, and he decided to donate it to Vital Ground. I mean, what an incredible thing. And so I think it's important to highlight people like Evan and the guides and photographers who do this because they love it too. I mean, it's a really special thing.
Yeah, I think people will see a lot of familiar faces if you're in the wildlife community or you're on YouTube with wildlife photography. I forgot to name more people. Who did we mention, Alex? Do you want to mention more people?
Bo Weldon, Savannah Rose, Jacob Crank, Anna, Sylvia Medina, who's a 399 children's book author.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I have sent those as baby gifts before. So when you told
really?
me that,
Yeah,
yes, when you told me that, I'm like, oh yes, I do use for books for gifts. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Siler's in it. Siler's been on the podcast.
Yeah, Siler's in it.
I hope to have
Kristen
Anna on
Combs.
soon. Yeah, yep.
Kevin Taylor, I don't think he's on social media, but he's a really great guide in the Tetons.
Mhm, mhm,
Thomas Mangelson,
mhm,
um, Chris Servine,
mhm.
you have Shane Burke, bear attack victim.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We didn't even get to
Um,
talk about that yet. So people might have questions about that too, but you did
yeah.
talk to Shane Burke about
Um,
I was there when that happened and we saw the
really?
helicopter leaving and I'm not on a scanner or anything. So we had no idea till the next morning what had happened. And
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. So
we just saw the
you were like,
helicopter and thought, huh, that's
oh, you
interesting.
saw the hell? Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were like,
Wow.
whoa, what's happening over there? Yeah. So that is part of the documentary, everyone. You do talk to Shane
Yeah, we talked to
and Steve
Shane.
Torrey too. Suba also asked, was there a heartwarming moment when you were filming 399, except her untimely demise? Anything warm your heart during that? It had to.
Oh yeah. There are plenty of times. Well, yeah, in the Bear Jams, just seeing the group joy was probably the most
Yeah.
heartwarming thing.
Yeah.
Um, I will say, and there are a lot of negatives at the Bear Jam, but and I know everybody they like to talk about the kind of the worst case scenarios with bear jams, and I know you both have experienced some of that. But I think people talk about it because they care. There are times when the bear jams are great and it's a perfect symbiosis,
Yes.
uh, or it's the best we can do.
Yes.
Uh,
It's very true.
and that I saw a lot of that. It was heartwarming actually at the Bear Jams just to see people who knew so much about the Bears, people who knew nothing, and they were just so excited. That was really heartwarming. But then, yeah, we do have a lot of like uh, stories, personal stories that people have with 399 that I think longtime 399 fans won't even know. And so these are kind of like very personal final moments they had with her.
Oh,
So that's kind of I think going to be one of the more special things.
oh, that's very cool. That's very cool.
So yeah, there was a lot of great joyful moments.
Yeah. Evan, are there ways that you think you're a better photographer now because of 399?
Definitely. She was a huge motivation for me early on. Like I wanted to get photos of 399,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like she is part of the reason that I like worked really hard to hone my craft as a photographer. A huge reason that I came to Yellowstone in the first place that eventually snowballed into me kind of being here full time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think she's had a huge impact on me, and she is kind of the bear that made me fall in love with bears.
Yeah.
Um, so she's definitely been huge for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, what are your plans coming up, Alex? How can people support the documentary? And then you touched on plans a little bit, but reiterate that for us. How can we help you? How can we support you? And
Yeah, so the film is in final stages, and
Mhm,
so I'm working on fundraising right now, and I have an Indiegogo campaign.
mhm.
It's called 399 Forever. Um, and if you're interested in keeping up with the film, you can check it out there. And if you want to donate, it'd be amazing, and we appreciate that. There's different ways to donate. You can actually, Evan also donated some of his photos if you're interested in purchasing those. Um, and I've also found success outside the Indiegogo campaign. So it's coming together, but that's wrapping up in about 2 weeks. And then yeah, the future is screenings, festivals, and then getting it out on a streaming platform.
Well, I mean, just from everything I've seen of it, I have not seen the finish, but I've seen a lot of it, and I really love your point of view. I think you've done a really good job exploring themes that when you're there, you feel all those themes. Like
Oh,
it's
that's really
right
nice. Yeah.
there. It's right there. And I love that you're talking about that. And I also love that you're showcasing some of these names that are working hard every day, like Evan, to kind of cobble things together to make this all work. Like it's really hard to make it all work as a wildlife photographer and guide. And that's why you have to be a guide, and that's why you have to sell prints, and that's why you have to do YouTube. Like it's a lot to cobble together. And so it meant a lot to me just to be able to say, oh, I know them. Oh, I know their work. Oh, that's so cool to see someone that's as passionate as me as doing what I'm doing on a smaller scale. And so I really appreciate that you're showcasing people that are invested and maybe not in the spotlight. So I really enjoyed that. And I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I think it's a fun ride too. Where you'll see this is a famous bear, and then you're like, wait, she's on YouTube, but then you find out, wait, this is how it's done now, and this is how
Yeah.
you message out, and it's true. I mean, people like Evan, it's like that's how you spread the story, and that's how you spread your conservation now is online, and
Yeah.
I think
And
it's
then you
great.
go by the river and just like photograph pelicans for a while to just take a break
Yeah,
from,
exactly.
from all the traffic and driving and people. That's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Evan, I don't know. How do you refuel after you're with people and you're like in the jams? How do you then refuel?
I the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
find something that no one else is shooting, even if it's a
Yeah.
simple like the other day I was in Lamar Valley, and I just laid in the grass and photographed Uinta ground squirrels for
Yes.
like 2 hours. And it's like the
Yes.
most common, simple subject, but it was so peaceful and relaxing and nice. And so yeah, just those kind of moments away from the crowd
I
to
totally did
recharge.
that. I was down at the Snake River by myself on my belly photographing killdeer. And I'm like, I have killdeer at home. Like, what am I doing? Like, but it was just like you just need at some point to shoot your camera without anyone around and like just to have peace in nature for a little bit. And I think that's I really resonated with that too in the film. And also Savannah says like wildlife saved me. We talk a lot about that on the podcast, how wildlife and nature and creativity affect our mental health and affect our personality and our lives, and how we can see ourselves before and after a camera. So I think I just really resonated with that, Alex. I'm glad you covered that because it is a very valid theme with a lot of us introverts that are in this field now and having to post and all that.
Yeah,
Keep up with
yeah.
that. Yeah. So,
And
Evan, what is next for you? What are you doing? I know you're guiding right now with Yellowstone Wild. And then what else? What are you doing this year? And do you have plans for Alaska or 2026? What's going on with you?
I do, yeah. So I'm guiding for Yellowstone Wild all of this summer, and then this winter as well. I'll be leading some winter and Yellowstone
Oh,
workshops with
good.
them.
Oh, good.
Um, and then in August, I'm going to Alaska for a 10-day stint, I think.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I'm going to be working with Scott Stone Photography, who's been on the podcast.
Yes, he has.
Scott's team.
Yes,
They're just some of the nicest people.
they
And they
are.
invited me to Alaska to help with one of their bear camps.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be
That's
hosting one of
great.
their fishing bear camps in August. And then next year, um, I have an Alaska workshop I'm running myself in July. And I'm also trying to put together another trip with Scott.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
and we'll be doing some stuff in Yellowstone as well. So
Yeah, because he's
yeah,
doing focus photo tours and you're listed with
yes.
that. Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to be working with Focus next year for at least a couple of Yellowstone and Grand Teton tours, and
That's
maybe
great.
some other stuff. We're working on trying to put some other stuff together. But yeah.
That's
So very
great.
excited for that.
And this is one of your bear photos. Are you in Katmai or where are you here?
This was Lake Clark National Park.
Okay. Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
bear was out on the mud flats. Most
wow.
of the bears were clamming, digging for razor clams under the mud.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big male that was just like constantly chasing females around. Uh, so yeah, cool moment. Beautiful light that morning,
I was
and
going to say that foreground is unbelievable.
yeah,
That is amazing. I
thank
love
you.
it. And background and midground, whatever is all gorgeous. When I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's breathtaking. I had to shoot in a lot of heat haze and because we flew in and so we would get in, and have to be out in midday. So I want to go back. So I'll be watching what you're doing so that I can go back. Maybe I'll go with you and Scott. I need to
Cool. Yeah, you should.
I need to go back because I want that morning light. I can't wait. And then, so where can we find you, Alex? Where can people find? Actually, I want to make sure people go and see like the trailer to the documentary
Oh
and
yeah, we should put a
so tell
link.
everybody where to find that.
So there is a link on the Indiegogo website, not to force you to go there, but it's also on Instagram. There's a 399 doc Instagram, and then
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook. I put on my personal Facebook as well, but we'll put it somewhere there as well, where people can find it.
And it's $3.99 forever. So if you
Yeah.
can Google that as well, right? $3.99 forever, and then
Yeah, the right now everything's on the fundraising page, but that we can update a link later once that's
yeah, and
done.
I'll include links on YouTube,
Okay.
Apple, and Spotify for all of this, and when I'll email it out as well, so everybody can see it. But I know you can follow at 399 doc, right?
Yeah, yeah. You can follow 399 Doc and
Yeah.
then Stabby 3000.
Yeah. Yeah. Give all your stuff. Come on.
Yeah.
What are you going to do after this? This is like
After
your life
this,
right now.
yeah, I mean, it would be amazing to do another passion project, but I think I'd have to get some a little less exciting. But I'm not sure. I mean, I was tempted to switch away from the Bears, but then the bear drama never ends,
No,
so
it
it could
doesn't. You've
be
got more
something to
material, I'm
return
sure.
to.
Coming, coming, coming. Yes.
I mean, I loved making this, so I wouldn't say no if an opportunity happened there.
Yeah. Evan, what are you going to do? I mean, where can people find you? Sorry, I just like totally lost my whole train of speech there. Where can
No,
people
you're
find
good.
you?
So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Watts Wildlife Photo. YouTube is just Watts Wildlife. And then my website is Watts Wildlife Photography. So any of those
Yeah.
avenues, to keep up with my work.
Sounds good. So you guys need to follow Evan, follow Alex, and Evan, where can people buy prints from you? Any of those places?
Yeah, Watts Wildlife Photo or wattswildlifephotography.com,
Yeah.
my website.
Yeah.
And that's also linked on my Instagram and a couple of those social channels as well.
Yeah. And
To
if
get
they
to
want
my
to do a
prints.
tour with you, can they contact Yellowstone Wild or Scott and make sure they're with you?
Yes, yeah. So Yellowstone Wild through next March, and then following that, I'll be working with Scott through the summer
Yeah.
for Yellowstone and the Tetons and some bear stuff in Alaska
Yeah.
as well. So yeah,
That's
or
great.
contact me and I can direct you to the
Yeah.
right
You'll
person
get them
depending
there.
on
You'll get them
yeah.
there. So I want to end on what's a moment in wildlife or wildlife photography that touched your soul or filled you up? Alex, what do you think? Can you think of one?
Oh, okay. So I said the 399 Bear Jam, but I will say the first time filming in October 2023, I was out there and in the Tetons, and I was just focused on doing interviews, and I wasn't planning on doing any wildlife stuff. But of course, when I was there, I was like, you know what? It would be nice to see a bear. And so that was kind of always in the back of my mind. And then I think it was our last day. I was just kind of defeated in the end of the park, and we're about to do an interview with someone in the car, and then we're just literally looking for where to shoot, and then all of a sudden this bear popped out, and it was just us and the bear, and it was just an incredible moment, and it was just so much adrenaline and joy at the same time. And then now I look back on that and really appreciate the fact that we were alone. That was just such an
Yeah.
incredible moment.
Yeah, those are the moments you hope for and wait for. Yeah, and get that bear buzz. Evan, what do you think? Can you think of a moment?
Yeah, I would say my trip to Alaska last summer is what kind of stands out to me most right off the bat. Like, I've been photographing bears in the lower 48 for a while, and I'm very used to being in a crowd of 300 people with a bear.
Yeah.
Getting up to Alaska and there being more bears than people, and we just pick which one we want to walk up to, was a totally different experience. And the setting is so dramatic and ethereal, and even just the bush plane flight into those locations is just like out of this world, like mind blowing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that just like refilled my soul, recharged my batteries for a long time. That was just amazing, and I just crave that feeling again now.
I know.
Yeah.
I totally agree. At one point, when we were in the float planes, you can't hear other people. Like we had our headphones on and it's so loud, and you're passing this just magnificence. And I just remember someone looking over at me and like pointing at my eyes, because you're tearing up. It's so beautiful. And then you're out with those bears and it's so wild. You just have to keep like pinching yourself. Like, I can't believe this is real.
It doesn't feel real.
It doesn't feel real. No, it's like I'm on the edge of the world on this coast and like these beautiful bears. Yeah. How lucky are we? I mean, we're just really, really lucky.
For sure.
Yeah, so lucky to see what we see and do what we do. So I wish you both just the absolute best. And I'm so thankful to get to know you and interview you and to support this project. I think it's really important. And I love all the work you've put into it and the themes that you explored. And I look forward to the finished product. It's going to be really good.
I hope so. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been amazing. This has
been amazing. Everyone can say goodbye. Everyone's saying thank you. Looking forward to the documentary. So
yeah,
I think
I do have, you know what, I just remembered.
Yes.
I do have a website, alexstab.com, and that has a page about 399 Forever. You can see clips, you can see info. It'll have this podcast, and then there'll be other updates there as well.
I was going to say, I think you had that website. I've been looking at it.
Right.
So say it one more
Completely
time for
blank.
everybody. Say it one more time for everybody.
It's alexstav.com. So that's my first and last name.
Yes.
Shortened a little bit.
Yeah.
That's where it is for now.
Yeah. And there's different tabs. So you can click on the $3.99 tab.
Tabs. Yeah.
And there's also $3.99 doc merchandise.
You can buy a hat.
Yeah.
The hats don't really make money, but they're fun. So
and a shirt.
And a shirt.
That's what we're going to end on, Alex. Everybody buy a hat. Everybody buy a shirt. Well, thanks you guys so much. It was so fun. And I just look forward to seeing you guys out in the field sometime and meeting in person. And we'll just do one of those chats in a bear jam sometime.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you for having us on. It was a blast.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Nice. Thanks so much. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us. And next I have Bo Weldon is coming up. So we're going to continue this discussion. He's coming up June 10th. And then Trish Hennessy is coming up June, I'm trying to think, 17th, a week later. And then you can follow me on Instagram, Jen L. Ritchie. You can follow Wildlife Conversations Podcast. And on YouTube, all the episodes are under Jen Ritchie Photography. So you can follow and catch up there. We've got, I think you guys are the 23rd episode. So we're just booking it. We're just keep going and see what happens. So we've got fall coming up, and I do still have, I think, 1 or 2 spots left for my fall workshop, and Steve Mathis will join me for that. So it's going to be really good. So thank you guys so much. It was really fun. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.